Okay, good afternoon, Sydney. If you want to put your headphones on, we are going to get this session started. Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Welcome to the MuleSoft keynote here at World Tour Sydney. I hope you've had a great day. I can see some weary faces out there. You've clearly been taking in a lot of sessions and content, so thank you for coming to this MuleSoft keynote today, where we are going to talk about how you can build the foundation to this multi-agent enterprise that I'm sure you've been hearing a lot about today. Now, before I get into the agenda, a quick reminder that Salesforce is a publicly traded company. Please make any purchasing decisions based on currently available products and services. In terms of today's session then, I'm going to be joined by two other wonderful speakers. A little bit of an introduction to myself. I run product marketing at MuleSoft globally, but I'm actually based down in Melbourne, so always a good excuse to come up here for some consistent weather. Any excuse to come and speak to a local crowd. And I've been at MuleSoft for 10 years, so I've really seen MuleSoft evolve its value proposition, and today we're going to share what that looks like in this new agentic enterprise. But for the second half of this session, I'm going to be joined by two wonderful speakers, both Lloyd from IAG, and I know we've got a few IAG folks in the crowd today. He'll be sharing his experience and actually giving you some real practical tips that hopefully you can take back to your own businesses. And he'll be having a fireside chat with my colleague, Monique. So in terms of the agenda today, it is action-packed. I'm first going to take a step back. The title of this session is about a foundation. Well, let's first take a look. What is a foundation for an agentic enterprise? Why is integration part of that? And why is it so important? I'll then share about some of the latest innovations from MuleSoft that can help you realize this foundation. And then we'll hear from Lloyd and Monique before we wrap it all up and get you on your way home with some best practices and some tips to take back to your everyday. So if that sounds good, let's get started. And let's take a look at this agentic enterprise that we've talked so much about. And as you've probably heard today, this is a huge opportunity. It's rare in our businesses we have something that is so transformational. Truly, any business process, whether it's a customer process or an employee process, you can reimagine it with agentic for the better. So this is a wonderful opportunity that touches every single person in our organizations. And so it's no surprise that we're therefore seeing agents everywhere. Whether you build them yourself, whether you use a platform like Agentforce to build them, or whether you're using open source technology, wherever these agents are being built, you're seeing them crop up more and more. It's something we called agent sprawl. And actually, as you think about this future, it's because there's not just one, there's not two, we're talking about thousands of agents that we're going to be working alongside of. And so for us, as leaders, as we think about this future and this opportunity, we want to be able to take advantage of it, right? We want to be able to give our teams the ability to harness these agents in the right way. And that's where we talk about a foundation. How do we build a foundation so that you can make all of these agents exist in the way that you want them to? How can you govern them to make sure they're doing the thing you want them to? How can you then view what they're up to and also open them up, make them extensible so that they can connect to your existing business processes? So that's what a foundation is. And for anyone who's been in the industry for more than 10 years, this might seem like a familiar conundrum. Because 10, 15 years ago, I could have used this exact slide to talk about SaaS applications. 10, 15 years ago, we were talking about all of these SaaS apps that were exploding and sprawling across our organizations. And then, of course, APIs was the de facto protocol to connect at scale all of our applications. And then we had this conundrum of API sprawl. Well, that melting pot, that need for governance, extensibility, and visibility with applications and APIs is exactly what MuleSoft solved for back then. We help, and we are the market leader in helping organizations govern, orchestrate their APIs and their systems, and supporting open protocols like REST, OpenAPI. Well, for MuleSoft, we realized this same value proposition we can now extend into your agentic enterprise. So for the last 12 months, we've been hard at work extending our current platform to be able to help you achieve this. Help you achieve governance and management of not only your AI agents, but also your AI assets like MCP servers, and opening up the platform to support new protocols like agent-to-agent or A2A and MCP, and whatever comes next, since this is still quite a nascent space. So this is what I'm going to share with you today. how with MuleSoft can you discover, govern, orchestrate and observe any agent in your enterprise. And then I'm also going to share how are we bringing Agentic into the MuleSoft platform, because it's not just agents, it's also how can we use Agentic in our everyday to speed up our workflows. So let me start with the first two. How can MuleSoft help you manage and govern any agent? And at the heart of this is what we call MuleSoft Agent Fabric. Think of this as literally a fabric across your enterprise to be able to discover, orchestrate, govern, and observe every agent in your enterprise, no matter where it was built. And what I'm going to do now is walk through each of these pillars in turn. And what I would say is, as you're thinking about your own AI roadmap, for many customers, just one of these pillars is the most important thing for them right now. And for some customers, they're trying to achieve all four of these in one go. And so with MuleSoft, our approach is really to understand which of these can add most value to you, and how can you build out as you mature your agentic strategy. So let's start with the first one. Firstly, you got to know where your agents are. You got to discover them. And that's where MuleSoft Agent Registry comes into play. Think of this as a catalog of all your AI agents and MCP servers in one central location. And again, this is a vendor-agnostic solution, so it truly is any agent that you're building. And just in January, we GA'd some new capability here, which we call agent scanners. So what is a scanner? Well, as we think about this new future, we're not talking about one, two, we're talking about thousands of agents. Manually registering every agent is going to become a little bit cumbersome. So what scanners do is you plug them in just once, you authenticate them into some of the most common agent building platforms like Agentforce or Copilot or Bedrock, and it will then automatically scan on a regular basis and pull in any agents that have been built on those platforms. So you can maintain a single registry at ease. So now that you can catalog and discover your agents, now you can have fun with them, right? Now you can do something with them. And the first thing you probably want to do is have them work together. And this is where what we call MuleSoft Agent Broker comes into play. So this is about how do you orchestrate agent-to-agent communication, but also bring some intelligence to that. So how do you connect it to an LLM of your choice so that it has the brain to know how it should route specific tasks. Now, as we think about this concept of agent-to-agent orchestration, it really comes a little bit down to your architecture design. And so what we're seeing customers build out is this concept of domain-driven agents. And so if you look at the research, what you'll see is if you give an agent too many tasks, usually more than 8, it might start to hallucinate or it might start to degrade its capability. So actually what we believe is going to happen is you're going to start breaking down agents' tasks into subdomains, and then what you'll ultimately do is have an orchestrator, what we call broker, bring and route the tasks to the right agent. And obviously as we get more advanced, that will then become cross-domain. So actually how do you have an agent that is able to orchestrate across multiple domains? So to bring it to life, here we've got the HR domain. You might have an agent that's just responsible for employee badging. And then you might have another agent that's just responsible for employee onboarding, right? And so as you then think about how you route tasks appropriately, you can chain them together in the right way. So MuleSoft supports A2A and MCP out of the box now, so this is how you're able to realize this future. So now we've discovered our agents, we've connected them together at scale. Well, now comes the really important but hard piece, MuleSoft Agent Governance. This is what makes it easy, because actually you now need to ensure that they're working in the way we want them to. And so with MuleSoft Agent Governance, what you can do is apply consistent policies to every agent-to-agent interaction or agent-to-system interaction. And actually, if you're a current MuleSoft customer, you're probably already familiar with our policies approach. You might already have policies in your API ecosystem. You can reuse those same policies now in this agentic space. The other part of this, which I think is an increasingly hot topic in the industry, is authentication. Because actually the other thing we want to make sure is that agents are interacting in the ways that we want them to with the right individuals. So for example, I'm a team leader, an employee agent might give me more information than it might to an individual contributor. This is a really hard problem though at scale, which we've now solved. So we call it trusted agent identity. And this is where it's authorizing who the user is and then actually delegating that authorization to any other agents in the task so that the responses are personalized to who they're meant to be. So again, a really hard problem that you can now scale with agent governance. So we've discovered, we've orchestrated, and we've governed. Now, it's about operational efficiency and visualizing and observing what's going on. And that's the final pillar here, Visualizer. This is a visual map of not only your agents, but also the tools and the data that they are accessing. And why is this important? As you think about, again, this network of dozens, if not hundreds of agents, you want to make sure, again, that they're interacting in the right way, but increasingly you're going to want to know, how can I make this more efficient? How can I make sure that they're choosing the right model that's more cost effective? How can you make sure that you have policies applied in the right places? This map is there to help you do that at ease, just from visual sight. So it's pretty exciting, and again, this is all GA. We've got customers using this today and extending their MuleSoft ecosystem in this place. One of these customers is actually Barco. If you're not familiar with Barco, they are an image processing company. They build a lot of hardware. Actually, you might see a few boxes around because Barco is helping to supply this event today. They're using MuleSoft to build out and abstract all of their systems of record into APIs, and then what they're doing with MuleSoft is converting them into MCP servers so the agents they build out can then access all of those systems of record. That might sound abstract, so let's make it visual. This is the reference architecture for what they call Barco Genius. This is a headless set of systems which they can then plug into knowledge agents wherever they're needed. So you can see here, Agentforce is part of this, as well as other agent building platforms. The important thing is that with Agent Fabric, they're able to orchestrate across these different agents, apply governance across those different agents, and more importantly, they've got that access, that consistent, reusable access to the systems they need. So that's it on Agent Fabric. Before I hand over to Lloyd and Monique, let me talk about the third pillar, which is around developer productivity. How are we bringing Agentic into the MuleSoft development experience to make it more enjoyable or easier? Well, the king of this story is what we call MuleSoft Vibes. Think of this as your purpose-built integration agent. This is GA in the platform today, and think of it as a single conversational interface where you can literally do the whole integration lifecycle all with natural language. It's your new pair programmer best friend. And it's not just about building and deploying and testing your integrations, it's also about troubleshooting them. This is one of the #1 pains for anyone who works in integration. It's figuring out, why did that go wrong? And so with Diagnostics Agent, you now have an AI generative summary trying to help you troubleshoot and then recommending solutions to that problem. And again, this is all GA on the platform today. We've got even more though. As we think about building out integrations, we know in this new AI agentic enterprise, there are new systems and ecosystems building up. So of course, MuleSoft is known for our out-of-the-box connectors. We've also now added dozens of AI connectors to some of the most common systems. So think Bedrock, OpenAI, Claude, so that you can jumpstart development with an out-of-the-box template. And finally, if you're maybe not a pro code enterprise integration user, if you're maybe a Salesforce administrator, or you're looking for something a bit more lightweight, we've got you covered. MuleSoft for Flow is our low-code solution, and this is built natively within the Salesforce platform. So if you're familiar with Flow Builder, which is the native solution within Salesforce itself, you can now access over 100 MuleSoft connectors with just drag and drop interface within the Salesforce platform. So again, it's about trying to lower the barrier to entry to fix some of these difficult problems. What's really exciting, and I don't have time to cover today, is we're also bringing MuleSoft's intelligent document processing to MuleSoft for Flow as well. So if you think about any heavy paper-based processes that you run within your business, you'll now be able to use that IDP capability directly within Salesforce as well. So it's pretty exciting. There is a lot happening. Like I say, I've been at MuleSoft for 10 years, and I've never seen this rate of innovation in that 10 years. In the last 12 months, we've doubled the amount of launches. So I appreciate there was a lot to digest here, but I'm sorry, there's even more that I didn't have time to cover. We have a stacked roadmap that we would love to share with you, and it is all about how can we help you realize this agentic future and build this foundation for scale. So, it's all well and good hearing me talk about it, but let's make it real and hear some life lessons and some tips and tricks from a real customer. So with that, can you please give a big round of applause for Lloyd from IAG and Monique.
Thank you
very much.
Well, thank you, Lloyd, for joining us here today at Agentforce World Tour. Before we begin, how about you tell us a little bit about who IAG is and what they do for Australia?
All right. Thanks, Monique. Great to be here. A couple of false starts, but we finally made it. I had an integration at IAG, and for those that don't know, IAG is the parent company of a lot of brands out in Australia that you're probably familiar with in NRMA, CGG, and then in New Zealand we've got AMI and State, etc. So we underwrite about $17 billion worth of premium insurance, so it's quite large, and that's important because behind all of that is a lot of complex systems that are connecting to be able to achieve those goals. So integration for us is kind of mission critical in what we do, and super important in how we deliver what we promise to our customers, both in Australia and New Zealand.
So on the note of complex integrations and systems, can you take us back to a point in time when IAG didn't have that integration architecture? And what were some of the pain points and challenges you're experiencing?
Yeah, so I'll rewind a fair bit, right? So IAG as an organisation has gone through quite a bit of acquisition over its time. So we kind of ended up in a space where we're managing multiple integration platforms. Now, nothing was broken. Those platforms did what they needed to do in their own different spaces. Great engineering talent supporting those different platforms. But what they were doing was building to different standards, different practices in those individual domains. We came along and then we had a fairly big digital transformation program that we're trying to roll out. And we started to put those platforms under stress. So when we started to put that under stress, what we found that, I think for me, the fundamental thing that was missing was we lacked proper governance, the ability to visualize what we have from an ecosystem state and seeing how are we from a risk perspective, how are all these teams making sure that we're building the right things. Duplication started to creep in across those different platforms. And the most important thing though, we started to see our cost per unit go up. So the complexity of managing different platforms, building these APIs now for this program wasn't kind of working.
So in terms of actually coming to look at an integration platform, what were some of the steps that you took and how did MuleSoft sort of start to enter that picture for you?
Yeah, so this is interesting, right? So we didn't make a decision overnight. We're going to flick over and go onto MuleSoft anything. There was a lot of decisions along the way that we kind of made. First of all, when I was talking about those three platforms, one of those platforms was MuleSoft. So we had MuleSoft on-prem and we had 120 APIs running on that platform. The first decision we made that we're moving that to the cloud, right? And that was kind of our cloud strategy, moving on-prem to the cloud. So then I think somewhere around mid-2024, a couple of key things happened, right? So one was we coming off the back of kind of like open banking and everyone wanting to get a developer portal and wanting to get access to all of their customers via their APIs. IAG went down that same journey, but we went down the journey of building that ourselves and it never went live, right? So that was one key thing. At the same time, at that point, we did a kind of an audit against all of our estate. Again, that's the back of kind of the Optus kind of stuff that happened. And we didn't have a single view of all our APIs in the organization and who owned those APIs, right? So that was a kind of a key decision point. And the decision point was how do we get something in place from a developer portal perspective or an API catalog in place so that we can just track all of our assets. So the decision at that point was we tried building this ourselves, didn't work. Let's go to the market, see what's available. And it happened that Experience Hub was in market. We already had MuleSoft. So that was going to be speed to market for us. So we were able to stand up Exchange and Experience Hub, get all of our assets into that. So that ticked the box around that kind of ordering security perspective. The next kind of fundamental thing was, as an organization, we kind of made a decision around becoming our strategy to move towards SaaS and PaaS. So that kind of leaves a few players in the market, right? So we did a quick assessment of what's available to us, and MuleSoft obviously was up there with the other players in the market. But again, speed to market, MuleSoft was already in-house. We've already launched Experience Hub. For us, the journey to get this as an enterprise platform was a lot quicker. And we had another major program that was coming along, and we wanted to make sure that they were the right timing. Mule was already there for them to be able to be onboarded to. So I think those were the kind of the key decisions. And I think 12 months on now, we've stood up Cloud Hub. We've gone all in on the managed Flex Gateway. We've also deployed our MuleSoft API governance. So it's kind of the holistic solution that we wanted. Like we had multiple gateway technologies, multiple different platforms. So now we are on a single platform that has all the foundational capability. And now we've got the challenge of getting all of those 600 odd APIs onto a single platform.
So future flexibility was definitely something that you looked into in terms of what integration platform you were looking for, or was it more just looking at the present, at the here and now, to then go forward and see where that took you?
Yeah, I think for me it's about getting really solid foundations here. So you can't get to Agentic and all of that if you haven't got a really strong foundational base, right? So yes, I think when we're doing that market scan, looking at who do we partner with? Who's going to give us the capabilities around AI or any other capabilities that we want in the future that we can acquire quickly and have the flexibility to move on to those whenever we need to.
Well, I'm sure with such a strong journey, you've probably got some tips that you can share with us today. What are a few tips that you can share? And I'm not going to limit you to a number because I'm sure there's many that I've heard in our conversations. Yeah,
that's a good one. Okay. Look, my reflection on my journey, I think the number one tip I would be is know your organization and know what it wants to be. I think for us, it became really clear when we decided we weren't going to be an organization that builds platforms, right? And we wanted to kind of move to orchestrating capabilities for the organization. So I think making that decision sets kind of a North Star, because it's not only about the technology transformation, it's also about the cultural and mind shift that has to happen in an organization. So once you're clear where you're playing, I think it's a lot easier to drive that journey forward. So yeah, know your organization, know which camp you want to be in is probably my number one tip. The second one is cliche, but none of these changes or these transformations happen without people, right? And I think it's probably from my side is standing up the foundational technology around MuleSoft's been the easy part, trying to get people, and it's not just the engineers, it's leadership, having strong leadership across the organization, singing the same song, singing the same vision, right? So I think for me, that's always important, and making sure everyone's aligned, and there's a lot of work you need to do to get that alignment. And then finally, I don't think I would have said this 2 or 3 years ago, governance, right? Like, I've just become such a big believer of governance, right? And as we move into this agentic world, I think a lot more of this is going to be needed in large enterprises. And for me, it's not governance that blocks people or slows people down. It's how do you make that as part of the developer experience? How do you make that as you're kind of nudging them to do the right things? You're just providing a feedback loop when they're not doing things the way you want the organization to do them. So I think that's a big part of what we kind of do.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one point you shared in previous conversations was, and drawing on your point earlier too, is really think about the organization that you want to be. Like, you're not a SaaS creator, you're an insurance company. So I think that's something that's really going to bring forward that agentic era and really allow IAG to be quite strong. So with that in mind, last question, I promise. So where does your mind go towards that agentic enterprise? Like, how are you looking towards that future now that you've got a solid data foundation?
Yeah, this is an interesting one, right? I think agentic's kind of inevitable. I think we're going to end up there in some shape or form. For me, it's the pace of adoption, right? So OpenClaw came out. I spent 20 hours in the weekend. I played. I was wired by it. I was like, I got to go and do this at work the next day, right? Like, it was that type. But you get back into the enterprise world, and IAG is a company. Its brand is around help, and that means safety. That means trust. That means reliability. So how we go with that approach in a organization that is regulated has to be measured, right? So just to give you a few examples, right? So we are at kind of just playing with skills, right? So how do we get skills? How do we get the skills into the hands of, this is scale, right? So if we got 1,000, 2,000 engineers, and if we can just get them to a mind frame of just using prompting and skills to be able to do their work, that's an unlock on a lot of capacity, right? So there's a massive win for us in that space, and we're starting to deploy that on how we do our migration, plus how we build new APIs. Next kind of thing is, I think, what Simon touched on, right? So we've got this real solid foundation in governance. I think it's kind of special what we've created there. How do we apply that to agents? So I think the challenge we're going to have here is MuleSoft versus the hyperscalers, and where does that fit in the whole ecosystem at IAG, and trying to educate people on, you've got something here. Do we need to, again, that conversation about build, or can we leverage the capability that's available to us? And then lastly, our program's called Intelligent Integration, funnily. But that for me is now, how do you make these APIs agent aware, right? So I think it's the next evolution, and that's going to be a massive unlock. I think unlock for how those digital experiences and how that's going to change in the future.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much, Lloyd, for your time and sharing all those tips and those ideas about APIs and becoming an agentic enterprise as well. Lloyd will be available for a few minutes post this session, so if you do have any questions, please come up and have a chat to him. But now I'll hand back to Simon to close us out on such a wonderful day. So thank you again, Lloyd.
Thanks, Juan.
Off to you.
Thank you very much. It's a great job. All right, wonderful tips there. Thank you, Lloyd. Thank you, Monique. So, as you can see, even if you're not in the thick of Agentic right now, if you're still exploring, investing in building the foundation is only going to help you accelerate when you eventually do get to implementing a strategy. And hopefully you've seen MuleSoft as a partner to actively consider in helping you there. As you think about discovering, governing, orchestrating, and observing your entire agent ecosystem, MuleSoft has a platform there and is trusted for doing that in your API ecosystem, and now we're here for your agentic ecosystem too. And of course, that third piece around developer productivity. As Lloyd himself said, a lot of this starts with education and just testing out how you can use this capability. So if you're a MuleSoft customer, strongly encourage you to check out MuleSoft Vibes and give it a go. With that, I'll leave you with some takeaways. In terms of taking this back to your office, we have a connectivity benchmark report. The new report just came out in January. Some great statistics here that you can take back to your business to build a business case for how you bring leadership on side. And if you haven't already, check out MuleSoft in the campground. You can see Fabric in action, ask the questions. And lastly, if you want to just get hands on yourself, scan this QR code. You can actually see Fabric in action, walk through those 4 pillars I discussed, and hopefully start to build a business case for us to partner in future. With that, thank you and enjoy the rest of the day.